And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're taking a look at Telltale Fairy Tales, which is essentially the same thing as a game that we've already talked about, which was Telltales, except this one is Fairy Tales. But maybe you haven't seen our original review of Telltales. Well then, we're glad you're here, because we're going to show you how to play this one with Fairy Tales. Hooray! Fairy Tales are better than regular stories anyway, right? Well, let's see. In this game, there are many cards that have two sides, and on these sides are various things that you might find in a story about fantasy, and you can use pretty much anything you want from these cards, whether it be an action or a picture on the cards. So what we're going to do now is Amy and I are going to go back and forth and just make up a story on the spot. Once upon a time, there was a man named Jed, and Jed was sad because he was a young man, but he looked old, and he had this hunchback that he was trying to get rid of.
Sooner or later, he wanted to see if he had family. So he went to this house, but they said that all his family had died.
Okay, well, that made him very sad. So he wondered how they died, and he found out that a wicked prince had killed his whole family to get their land.
And then he wanted to get revenge, but first he had to go in the cave and think about it.
After he thought about it for a while, he hired some people because he was ugly and did not want people to see him, so he hired a coach to take him, and he started hiring soldiers to fight against this prince.
And then they stopped at this Candyland, so they got distracted.
And they decided that they would eat so much candy, then the witch came back and arrested them for trespassing, and they were thrown into prison.
And then they escaped with the keys.
Then as they were walking down in the forest, they met a tree, and the tree said, "If you defeat the evil prince, then you will no longer look deformed."
The witch found out that they escaped, and she tried to find them. But
using some weapons, they managed to kill the prince and defeat the witch at the same time. And the hunchback, his back was straightened. He now looked like a handsome prince.
The princess longed for a husband.
And it was true love.
And she got married.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end. They lived happily ever after. The end. So that's how you play the game. I mean, well, that's not exactly how you play the game. You can play a game where you each get 6 cards and then you make a story yourself and everyone tells their story. Or you can do a communal story like we just did, where you have cards out there. Or there's all different ways to do it. There's 24 stories and then you just take a card and begin the story and draw cards from a stack. But it's all about telling a story with these cards. And essentially, even though there are some games that include it in the rules, you can do whatever you want with these. And if you're a teacher out there and you have a younger class, this is an absolutely fantastic tool to show them and help them. And I mean, these cards can be basically anything you want. This might be a waterfall, or it might be a hidden grotto, or it might be just used for water. This might be a beautiful princess or an evil stepsister. It's all up to you and your imagination. This might be a princess, or it might just stand for someone who's sad. And so these cards kind of open a gate to the imagination. So that's Telltale Fairy Tales. It's a very short, simple game, and it's going to have a very specific crowd, and that is the younger folk. But it's also a great family game. This is a game that allows you to use your imagination. Sure, you can sit around and just tell stories and make stuff up, and that's fun. But giving kids a visual aid in this nice little container, this package coming together. I like the original Telltale. It was good, but this one's a little bit more focused because, let's face it, kids like fairy tales, and this has a lot of the great elements of fairy tales in it. So if you work with kids or have kids, this is a great thing to get. Telltale Fairy Tales.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.
Shut the door!
That's right. Shut it.
Yeah?